Forward finishing rolls are excellent rough water rolls. Recovering to the front deck allows the paddler to immediately see what is happening next. They are also excellent if you don't have backward flexibility or if you get disoriented or suffer vertigo while upside down underwater. If your kayak has a high back deck, which makes it difficult to do a layback roll, then perhaps a forward finishing roll might suit you better. There are a kayaker's dozen forward finishing rolls in the Greenlandic competition list, and they all fall into two broad categories, based either on the reverse sweep roll or the storm roll. All of the forward finishing rolls use palms down low brace position, and you always end over the front deck with your head as low to the deck as possible. The storm rolls start at the front and finish at the front, whereas the reverse sweep rolls start at the back and finish at the front. We believe that these two fundamental forward finishing rolls, the reverse sweep and the storm roll, are the rolls that will serve you best in roughest conditions.
In forward finishing rolls, the four fundamentals still apply. They're just slightly different.
And remember, our mantra always applies. Roll the kayak first, head out of the water last.
We still drive with the lower or water leg in forward finishing rolls, but we tuck our body forward as close as possible to that leg. As your body comes across the foredeck, think about trying to give yourself a black eye with your water or lower knee.
In forward finishing, I'm going to drive my up leg into the kayak, bring the kayak over on top of me, and I'm going to try to find a position where my shoulders are square on the water and my chin is up, my spine is arching up through my head. To recover, I'm going to drop my chin to my hip, drive the kayak with my water leg, and when I run out of range at the hip, I'm going to swing forward over my knee.
Notice the hip is closing in the forward finishing rolls, as opposed to opening in the aft finishing rolls. Although the water leg is driving in both, when we compare them, we can see that the hip is doing something completely different. We still float on the water in forward finishing rolls with our shoulders parallel to the water, but we're facing down, not up. Keep the leading shoulder down in the water as long as possible.
If you struggle to pull one shoulder down, then think of pushing the other shoulder up. You are trying to get as flat as possible on the water.
Rotation is equally important in the forward finishing rolls to get your shoulders square to the water and to prevent shoulder injury. It's important to keep the forward shoulder down in a horizontal plane as long as possible. It is more difficult to float face down at a right angle to the kayak, so good forward flexibility is desirable. In every roll, some form of coiling and uncoiling, or both, is needed to release the body's energy to the kayak. The reverse sweep is almost the opposite of the standard roll. You start uncoiled and end coiled. In the storm roll, you start coiled and you end coiled, releasing energy to the kayak from rotating your shoulders 180 degrees.
There is more information about these key concepts in the earlier fundamentals chapter.
In the standard Greenland roll, the sweep hand is always sweeping. It never pries. But in both forward finishing rolls, the outer sweep hand has a dual purpose. It often sweeps and sometimes pries, depending on circumstances. The key is to be clear in using these very different actions. We teach the reverse sweep before the storm roll because most people find it easier to learn. It is a powerful roll, starting from the stern and finishing forward. The reverse sweep has several components. If you go straight for the roll, it can be very disorienting. As you capsize backwards, sweep forwards, and finally pry. We teach and use the reverse sweep with an extended paddle. But later in the DVD, we'll show you some modifications you can make if you want to do the roll with an unextended blade. The reverse sweep roll is a great roll anytime you find yourself capsized off the back deck. Instead of wasting energy getting into your setup position for the standard roll, just roll up from the stern. It also allows you to hold your position in beam-breaking waves, as you can roll down the wave and come back up on the other side of the crest. If your standard roll ever fails, then it's a long way to drag your paddle back to your setup position for another attempt, especially in rough water. But your paddle is already near the stern, in the right position to recover quickly with the reverse sweep. You can be back upright, breathing air in a second. This goes both ways. In a failed reverse sweep, you can rotate your shoulders to face the sky and recover with a layback roll. Great to practice. There really is no excuse for reaching for your spray deck when you can go to your backup roll instead. Before trying the reverse sweep in the water, we train the body first. As with the standard roll, we start with the recovery of the roll.
So with the land drill for the reverse sweep, you're going to lay on your belly with your head up, walking your hands out to 90 degrees, keeping the head parallel to the surface of the water, keeping shoulders square, driving with the bottom leg, moving shoulders over the front deck.
Practice this motion frequently on land to create muscle memory. Then your body will know what to do when it's upside down. Every morning and every night should be enough. All right, have a go.
Put your sternum down on the ground.
You may need to concentrate on keeping your leading shoulder down.
Right up at me. Okay, now to recover, you're going to drop your head to the bottom, visit Poseidon's lair as you bring that head to your right hip.
Drive the knee.
As long as you can, keep that shoulder down. Good.
Yep. You could always lift this one up if you, yes, good.
As always, keeping your head in the water until last helps keep your shoulders horizontal.
A common error that folks make in this roll is not keeping their head and face pointing down to the ground. Often, this one shoulder comes up like this. And then the shoulders sink and the kayak gets stalled in this position, and then you end up falling back in the water from here. So it's very important to keep the shoulder and your face rotated downward. So anyone watching should just see the back of your head dropping the head as deep as possible in the water, keeping this forward shoulder low as you right the kayak.
You can practice this motion on the ground or in a kayak. The key points to remember are: start with your spine arched and head up. Keep your shoulders parallel to the water at all times. To recover, drop your head, drive with your water leg, and sweep your nose across your water leg knee. Once your body has been trained on land, we move into the water with the Avatak and try the same body motion. Do you remember what to do?
Here we go, where spine is arched so that the head is up, the belly is down. To recover, we'll drop the head, come to the hip, and then sweep across the lower leg knee that is driving the kayak.
Notice that we can't see Sherry's face at all during recovery. When you try this for the first time, it's not as easy as it looks. As you can see, Roger is trying to keep himself above the surface of the water. With his head high, both legs are engaged, making it impossible to recover to the kayak. Take a few minutes and try to relax.
Just let your whole upper body go a little deeper. And just let the bag go above your head.
Above my head?
Yeah, just drop your face, yeah.
Now drive that bottom leg.
Now drive the bottom leg. Did that feel easier?
It did almost too far over the other side.
Well, that's because in getting your body a little deeper that you have some buoyancy to play off of.
Make sure you sweep your head as close to your knee as possible.
Head up, spine down. Now drop the head and drive the leg.
In summary, drop your head as deep as you can in the water when you recover. Drive with your water leg. And slide your body over the kayak as low as possible. When we teach the reverse sweep roll, we like to use a 3-step progression, and we like to teach it from the back first. So we're going to start you with the forward finishing pry recovery. When we add the paddle, we can break down the reverse sweep into 3 stages. Set up, sweep, and pry recovery. If you have a very good reverse sweep, you could recover the kayak just using the sweep. You don't need the pry at the end. You can also recover just using a pry. This is commonly called a forward finishing pry recovery. Most people find the pry easier, so we teach it first. With this pry, your body does the same thing as with the Avatak, but it's a bit trickier because your 2 hands are doing different things.
So with the reverse sweep roll, I want to describe what the 2 hands do and what we'll call them. This is the sweep hand. When we go to finish forward, we're going to sweep the paddle forward with that hand.
We call the outer hand the sweep hand for simplicity, but it will also pry at the end of the roll. This is the pivot hand. While it initially starts with the high brace, as soon as you're back at the tag, you will keep this hand underneath you and it will serve as a pivoting post. Hold the end of the paddle in a low brace with your palms down. Roger has his index fingers basically to his beam width of kayak. And I like this hand off the radius of the paddle,
okay, yeah.
so that you're not slipping off the end. Rotate to the side and slide into the water. As you capsize, drive the pivot hand to the bottom, underneath your belly button. Put all your weight on the pivot hand. Let your sweep hand and the paddle come to your forehead with your elbow bent. As you drop into the water, arch your spine upwards like the cow position in yoga. It's important to get your shoulders parallel to the water with the paddle underneath your spine. To initiate your recovery, start the kayak moving by driving your water leg up. Simultaneously, begin to drop your head and sweep hand. Keep pushing your sweep hand and your head down as the kayak is rolling up underneath you. Your spine goes from arched to rounded, like moving from the cow to the cat position in yoga. Pull up on your pivot hand, getting a slight seesaw action with the paddle. Only pull up on the pivot hand just enough to clear the deck. Now, keeping your forward shoulder down, engage your abdominals and slide onto the front deck, keeping your head as low as possible. Make sure your shoulders stay parallel to the water and keep your face down the whole time. The pry turns the kayak over, but the last thing you need to do is get your body onto the kayak. Do this by pulling the paddle inwards over the front deck at the end of the roll. This provides the lift and support you need to finish the roll. Pretend you're pulling a sword out of a stone. If you have a deep kayak, you'll need to lift the paddle more to avoid hitting the combing ring. When you try this, concentrate on transferring your weight between your hands.
Oh, that was really good. I'm going to demonstrate what I'd like to see you do when you go into the water.
Yeah.
So I'm here. I'm going to lean forward over the paddle.
Yeah.
I'm going to go in and I'm going to straighten this hand straight down.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm not going to weight this hand. In recovery, when I drop the head, drop this hand and start to pry. Keep your head low and then pull the paddle across the foredeck. Head up. Okay. Head down and drive the leg. Yeah.
You can see a common error when Roger first tries this. He's transferring weight between his hands, which is good. But he's trying to get out of the water too soon by opening his leading shoulder. All the weight of the pry is now in his lower arm, which can hurt his shoulder. If you are strong, You may be able to recover with this incorrect technique, but you risk damaging your shoulder. This is why we emphasize technique over force. Underwater footage shows Roger lifting his head during recovery instead of dropping it.
To initiate the pry, think about driving your head with this hand.
Roger should be leaving his head in the water until last, and then recovering over the front deck. Roger makes a big improvement when his hands stay under his body. His forward shoulder is rotated down and his face is looking down. Compare this to his earlier attempt. Roger's technique could be even better if he got his head lower and if we couldn't see his face at all. So now that you have your forward finishing pry recovery, we're going to move along to the next step in the reverse sweep, and that's the sweep itself. We learn this by tagging the gunnel.
Step number 1, maintain the pry position. Step number 2, sweep back to the tag. Step number 3, sweep forward to the pry. Step number 4 is to pry up.
To practice the sweep, go into your pry. Keep all the weight in your pivot hand. Keep your head up and your spine arched. Rotate your body and your paddle, keeping the paddle under the spine, and tag the stern gunnel. Here you should find your kayak upside down on your shoulder with the top of your head above water. Once you tag the gunnel, you will sweep forward the same way, with your spine arched, your head up, and the paddle underneath you. Keep in mind that your paddle isn't yet providing any lift, but this exercise allows you to learn the correct body motion. Keep sweeping until the paddle is perpendicular to the kayak, and then pry up. Like the pry recovery, it's key to keep your leading shoulder down. Lifting the shoulder could lead to an injury. Move the kayak first. Head out of the water last. Can you see what Roger does wrong when he first tries this?
Okay, so what are we missing there?
My leg, or there was something where...
It's right here.
Right, okay.
As you're sweeping forward, instead of keeping this leading shoulder down as you sweep forward,
Yeah.
as soon as you started coming forward, the shoulder is opening.
Yeah.
As soon as that happens, your upper body is diving. If you come forward and I see your eyes looking at me, I know you're doing it wrong, and you know you're doing it wrong if you see me.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to see
Water.
is right here at your hip.
Yeah.
If you can focus your eyes there, your shoulder will stay down the whole time. Think about racking your entire rib cage down with your leading shoulder going this way.
Once you start getting the motion right, start adding the leg drive as you initiate the forward sweep. The leg drive, combined with the sweep, now starts turning the kayak over. Remember, your body continues rotating, keeping the forward shoulder low until you are on the front deck. Here, Roger's body position has improved dramatically, but he's not yet using his paddle effectively to sweep. He's relying on a strong pry to recover.
I don't know whether you're conscious of this or not, but you had the paddle about like that.
Okay.
What I would like to get you have the sense of is the paddle being here so that you can actually use the blade to sweep forward and gain some lift.
So much lower now.
Rather than plowing this through the water here and getting no lift.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, yeah.
A more effective sweep makes the roll a lot easier for Roger.
Yeah.
Now that you have the sweep and the pry, the last piece of the puzzle is the setup and capsize. And the capsize can take a bit of getting used to.
The reverse sweep roll is an elegant and sometimes disorienting roll for first-timers. Solve the disorientation by making sure that you have your paddle in high brace and that you lock it to the gunnel. Arch your spine, arch your head, fall backwards. Keep this locked position to the kayak, and you'll always know where your paddle is and what you can do next when you go to sweep.
It might feel strange to capsize backwards for the first time. The trick is to really arch your back and try and hit the water with the top of your head first. You can drive up with your water leg to help you capsize. In this case, your left leg. Lock your paddle to the kayak, and once you're upside down, you'll be in the exact same position as when you tag the back gunnel. Before you sweep, take a moment to get oriented. You want to be lying under the kayak with the kayak upside down on one shoulder. You are facing the bottom with your legs passive in the boat. Recover the same way as you did from the tag. Start driving with your lower leg and sweep forward. Remember to keep shoulders parallel to the surface of the water and recover to the front deck. Sweep your nose as close to the water knee as possible.
You're going to capsize towards me, and I want you to see enough arch in your spine so the water hits the top of your head first.
So I ain't going to capsize backwards.
That's right. Arch back and fall in the water from there.
That is so bizarre. I had to open my eyes just to get a bit of a bearing, just where everything was, and it's like, oh, now I remember this bit.
Well done. Not everyone gets there in their first lesson.
So, happy days. Thank
Yes,
you very much.
excellent.
So that's the reverse sweep. To summarize, the key points to remember are: when you capsize, arch back and pierce the water with your head. As you sweep, keep your shoulders parallel to the water and your paddle under your spine. As you recover to the kayak, drop your head and sweep hand, and keep your leading shoulder low. As always, our mantra applies. Move the kayak first. Head out of the water last. If you are failing to capsize and getting stuck on your back, then you probably aren't arching enough. Remember to try to enter the water with the top of your head. You can also help by capsizing with gusto. Drive up with your water-legged capsize. Make sure your paddle is tilted on edge so it slices through the water on entry. If your paddle is on the wrong side when you capsize, you are setting up wrong. Make sure your paddle goes diagonally across your stern. Remember to pin the paddle to the gunnel and hold it there as you capsize, or it can end up on the wrong side of the kayak. Roger is a little distracted as he makes this mistake. But he recovers very well.
There it is. Good.
Once you are fully capsized, take your time to set up with your paddle on the gunnel and your spine arched upward. This allows you to use the energy from dropping your head and sweep hand to recover. Here, Nick rushes everything. He doesn't set up with his paddle on the gunnel, and he doesn't arch his spine upwards before sweeping. He doesn't let his sweep hand rise to his forehead. He rushes out of the water, pulling up his head and his left shoulder, and putting a lot of strain on his right shoulder. When Nick takes his time and concentrates on technique, he has a much easier and safer roll. By arching to set up, and then dropping his head and sweep hand to recover, he's using that coiling energy to roll. The most common error with the reverse sweep is raising the leading shoulder and facing the bow rather than the blade. It is possible, but not desirable, to finish the roll this way, as it is dangerous for your sweep hand shoulder. To have a safer, more effective roll, think about getting the paddle under your spine at the tag and keeping it there until the paddle is perpendicular to the kayak and then pry up. This forces you to rotate and keeps your shoulders facing down.
So the paddle doesn't want to be leading the activity.
Okay.
It
So as I
doesn't want to
rotate-
be trailing the activity.
Yeah. So as I rotate.
The paddle goes with you.
Yeah.
If you are having problems raising your shoulder, try going back to the avatak and concentrate on sweeping your nose close to your knee on finish.
I'd like you to think about cracking a walnut
Yeah.
between your knee and your nose.
No.
Some people cannot even get there, but just thinking about being there as you go across
Yeah.
is the right action.
So coming up. sort of-
Yes.
Yeah.
Think about sweeping your nose right over that logo. Then once you're at the center line,
And then up.
then sitting up. Sometimes it's helpful to initiate going in, going forward, and then rotating in.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the place you want to go back to. So head up, spine down. Now to recover. Drop the head, drive the leg. Oh yes.
Yeah.
Once you have the action right, go back to the paddle and concentrate on the same body mechanic. Another common error is trying to pry by lifting the pivot hand too high and bending your pivot elbow. This has the same unwanted effect of raising the shoulder and the head.
Up. You turn the shoulder, go back in. Go back in.
Leslie is also making the same error and lifting her elbow to the side. She starts well with her upper hand near her forehead, which gets her shoulders rotated down. But when she goes to recover, she doesn't straighten her upper arm or drop her head. Instead, she rotates to the side. This causes the forward shoulder to lift. She only recovers because Sherry helps her. To succeed, she needs to drop her head and sweep hand. Her pivot hand should stay under her body and only lift just enough to clear the deck.
Remember to straight arm the paddle. If you bring your elbow up, this shoulder flies up. Your eyes fly up and you see the bow, and all the energy goes into the shoulder, thus, in all likelihood, hurting your shoulder.
Move the kayak first. Head out of the water last.
To use the Euroblade, the same principles apply, but it's a little more awkward to hold the paddle.
Whereas the Greenland blade fits naturally here in your hand,
Yeah.
and it just feels right.
Yeah.
There's nothing about that feels right, is
No.
there?
And what's interesting is suddenly both hands have got a different feel.
Most people find it easier to cup their pivot hand over the end of the paddle like this.
Got my thumb on as well.
We recommend learning with an extended paddle and going through the motions of the same learning progression. Start with the pry, then the sweep, and finally the roll. You could do the extended roll with either face, although using the power face down should be easier as the curved down blade naturally wants to climb, giving lift as you sweep. To recover with the power face, set up with the power face toward your stern. When you sweep forward, the key point is to move your body in the same way as with the Greenland paddle, keeping your head and shoulders down and using the body's natural ability to float. If you want to do the roll with an unextended paddle, it is quite a bit harder as you need to get the leading blade out of the way of the kayak. We recommend having your power face down as the blade gives you more lift and your paddle is higher in the water, making it easier to clear the paddle over the deck. No matter which blade face you choose, try to turn the kayak very early in the roll so it gets out of the way of the blade. Drive up with your water leg as soon as you start to recover and concentrate on getting a good sweep. As it is hard to clear the blade over the kayak with an unextended paddle, you could try an alternative setup. Rolls such as the Steyr roll, the reverse screw roll, and the rodeo or around the world roll are easier to clear the leading non-active blade. In these rolls, your sweeping body motion is similar to the reverse sweep roll, and you still sweep with the power face of the blade down. If your paddle is feathered, you might find these rolls difficult on your offside, as it's tricky to get your active blade flat to the water. We find the face-down rodeo roll setup the easier roll on our offside. Don't apply pressure to the paddle until the non-active blade is out of the water. Then as you sweep the active blade forward, rotate your palms upward and elbows down underneath you. However you set up, we recommend making these rolls safer and easier by emphasizing a body position similar to the Greenland reverse sweep roll, by keeping the leading shoulder and head down and taking advantage of the buoyancy of your body. Sweep your nose over your knee at finish. If you practice the different setups, then you've got more chance of recovering to your front deck, no matter how you get knocked over.